Hey friends, welcome back. Now in the last couple of videos we learned how to set up Python, an environment, also how to use Python in 3 different ways. And now let's explore a little bit more about DAX in Power BI. So at first I'd like to create a new page here. And then what I'd like to share with you here are a few table functions, in this case 2 of them, which is the cross join as well as the add columns function. Because next to measures, which you can create in DAX, there are also tables, which you can create with DAX. And they are often very useful. So let's dive deeper to those. If you have taken one of my other courses, you already have seen some of those table functions. As an example, we explore the all function as well as the values function. Now the 2 functions I mentioned here, which is cross join and add columns, I have not talked a lot about those functions in the other courses, that's why I think it's a good topic here. So let's first figure out what the cross join does. The cross join creates a Cartesian product in Power BI. That means we basically join each entry from the first table with each entry from the second table. This is what's meant by the Cartesian product. And to show this to you visually, I can simply use 2 columns for my oldest table. I could say I'd like to see, let's say, the customer countries, if I take this option here, and I don't want to see a map, I actually like to see a table. So it's easier to understand. Let me make this bigger. And let's actually dive into those settings, the formatting settings, and increase the value size to, let's say, 50. Okay. 50. So I got all my countries here, as well as my arrow entry here, which I need to fix. Especially if this is here, a real-world project, then we would have to go to those responsible person ask why there's a 0 or wrong entry in the country. For now, I just ignore this and filter it out. I go within the filters pane here and say for the customer country, for the time being, I like to get rid of the 0. So I select all, and then I remove here the tick for the 0. And then I simply remove it from this visual. And in the filters pane, you could also say directly, I would like to filter this out for the complete page. So all the report page, if you create additional visuals on this page, simply drag them the filter of the customer country into filters on this page. Or if you want to filter this out completely for all the pages in your report, simply drag it down there. However, as I said before, if it is a real-world project, I would highly recommend that you go to the person who provides the data and figure out what these 34 in this case entries actually are. Because obviously there's some error in the data set, and this is what you need to fix. And these problems here arise every day. So for each of your projects, there will always be some data issues. So it's good to see that here and to remind ourselves immediately, okay, this is something you need to fix. So let's go back to our table functions. I said the cross join does a Cartesian product. So what's meant by this, if I now take a second column, so let's say next to the customer country, I'd like to see the different kinds of ship modes. So use another text or string field here, and I take this option. Then what you see is now the entries for the custom country gets repeated. They get repeated 3 times because you got 3 different ship modes in the data set, DHL, DHL Express and UPS. So this is what's meant by the Cartesian product. So each row from the first table, in this case the country, gets mapped to each entry from the second table. Now here we create this Cartesian project artificially, I'd call it, because we simply drag 2 fields into the table. If you need this table inside your model for whatever reason, it could be reasons for that. Then what you could do is under modeling and create new table here. So in my ourselves that we have the option here to also create tables using DAX expressions. And that's what we do here. So if I click on new table, then we got here also our window, let me increase size, think. It's better, and then we can give this table a name. And let's say I named this table cross-join or Cartesian product or whatever you want to call this. It's equal to, and then let me go to move line, press Shift Enter and also tap. Like that, tap. And then I'd say I'd like to here cross-join the data. You can see here returns a table that is a cross-join of the specified tables. So you can take this option and then you can give it as many tables as you want. In our case, we said we would like to have two tables, which is the country as well as the ship mode. So how do we do this? Because I can't simply type in customer country. This doesn't work. So we first need to create a table based on the customer country column we have in the orders table. And we can do this. So creating a unique list of all the customer countries by using the values function. So values returns a unique list without duplicates of a specific column or table. In this case, we refer to a column. So I say this case customer and there it is customer country. Now we can select it. And we do the same as second expression here. When we say here, we'd like to see the values of the ship mode from the orders table, the ship mode, this one. And we can close this and also close a second parenthesis here. And I think I want space here too much. Let's go here. So that was kind of annoying. Let me just click do it like that. Okay. Maybe we need to just form this maybe a little bit nicer. Go to new line here and credit like that. Okay. So it's up to you how you want to form this. But this basically is the formula. So we do a cross sign which means that it is in product between those two columns. And because we can't cross join the columns itself, we need to first wrap them into the values function to create a table based on those two columns. And then if you press enter to evaluate that, you'll see that now here a new table gets created. It also has to set a calculator icon, which reminds us that this is actually a calculated table using a DAX expression. And if you want to take a look at the table that it actually matches what we have here, you can go to the data view, tick data here, and then select the cross-join table. And you see exactly what you get. Here you get the customer country first or for UPS. Then you get the customer country a second time for DHL Express and then the third time here for DHL. So the sorting of course is maybe a little bit different from what we have here in a report view. But actually we get exactly the same table as here. So that's the cross-join function and how you can use it. So if there's a use case for you and you need this kind of table, there's no need to set this up. From the data model view, you can simply create it within your model using a DAX expression. The second table or table expression I'd like to share with you is the add columns. So add columns function is very helpful because it allows us to create a table based on, let's say, either one table or one column, and then add additional columns to it. That's why it's called add columns. Now in order to add, let's say, expressions here, measures to our customer company. As an example, we would like to know what is the total amount per customer country and what is, let's say, the total sales per customer country. So something like if we do it in a visual in a table here directly, we could go with the orders table and let me first untick this specific table and then go with the customer country one more time. And I'd like to see this as here a table also increases size. Go with the values here and say I'd like to see this with 15. Now we can see all the countries here and the same is true for the 0 entry. This is why we said that you could do the following. If you really get annoyed of the 0, go to the customer country, drag this to, let's say, it feels on this page, take this option here, select all, exclude the 0 and now the 0 is gone for both of these tables. And what we'd like to do here, we'd like to see the sales figures. So we can take the sales we would see the sales, and we could also take here let's say, the amount I said. I take the amount and I get also the amount for each country. Then the formula, it's really nice here, but that's basically the table structure which we require. And in order to create this, we could say the following: we could first create the two measures. So I like to go with the orders table measure, and then SMB say this is the total amount and total sales. So they're kind of the same. Let's say the total amount is equal to, and I say using the sum x function, we could use the sum function here as well because we do not iterate over the table. We use the whole column, but I personally prefer the sum x because the sum function actually gets converted into sum x in the background. So under the hood. So we need to give it a table. We refer to the orders table, and the expression could either be a multiplication or anything like that, but it could also be only one column. Like in this case, let's say the total amount, the amount. And that's it. Okay. So you can evaluate that and you would get the total amount. And we can do exactly the same for the sum. So let me actually copy it like that, Ctrl C to copy it, right click on orders table. And no measure. And then we say this will be the total sales is equal to, and now I paste this inside. There's one equal sign too much. And instead of using the orders TBL amount, I'm referring to another column, which in this case is the sales column, like that. So if I do this and evaluate this, press enter, I got also a total sales measure here, which is exactly the same amount as you see here by the default sum of the column. However, personally, I would always prefer using measures instead of using the default aggregation columns, but that's my personal preference. Now for the table function for the add columns, what we could do is simply under the modeling tab, we refer to the new table because we would like to create it with a tax expression. You can click this option. And then there's our table. And then here we could say this will be the add columns table columns. Let's call this TBL. Actually, we have equal to, let me go to new line. Don't refer to the Apple table here, new line. And then I'm using here the values. So values here, now I need to give it a first, I think the add columns of course. So add columns return the table with new columns specified by the DAX expressions. So we use add columns. Now we need to give it a table and a set. If you remember that you can enter either a table or a column, but the column needs converted into table, this what you can see here, because the first argument needs to be a table. But we know that we can convert any column into a table using the values function. So you could say values, then you give it a here column name or a table name. In this case, we'll front with the customer country more time like that. And then we can specify here names and then the expression we would like to have. And this is the reason why I created this total amount as well as total sales, because I could say, I'd like to see the amount. This is the name of the column. And then you can give it the expression, which will be the total amount like that. And then you can do this for the other column as well. So I could say actually, maybe like that, if I put it down here, Shift Enter to go to Move Line, and then I'll also like to put it here, Shift Enter, go to Move Line. And here, let's say Shift Enter one more time. And then last one will be the sales. In quotes is equal to, that's the name of the column, and the expression will be the total sales. Okay. And then I close this here and I basically done with that. So you can add as many columns as you want. But what happens actually is we get a unique list of the customer countries and we add 2 additional columns, which are called amount in sales. And within these columns is the total amount for each customer country as well as the total sales figure for each custom country. And we store this as a table. So if you press enter and evaluate the table, you will see that there's an add columns TBL. Table. And if you would like to have a look what this table looks like, I would always go to the data view here, take this option and then choose the add columns here, add columns table. And then you would see here, you've got the customer country, a unique list of custom countries. You can see the amount for each country. And in the third column, you could see the sales number for each country. So I like to mention this add columns here because add columns is a function which is very often used also when it comes to creating virtual tables. So virtual tables means that you create a table within DAX expression as a measure. So let's say you want to create a specific measure and you want to evaluate this measure within a specific table. And it could be the case that you create a virtual table like this one here with the add column function and store it in a variable. And you return then a specific DAX expression, which only returns a value. So I'm referring to measures here, not tables, but within the calculation of measures, so DAX measures, you often use tables. And that column function is one function which is very often used. And it's quite easy to use and now you know how to do it. So you're referring to a table and you add all the columns you want where you use expressions you might have created. Okay. So that's it for this video. In case there are any questions regarding those two functions or also the values and all function, let me know. Otherwise, thanks a lot for watching and I hope this is you in the next video. Until then, best guys. Best guys.